in this situation? Like, you were supposed to come to Armenia, I think, with your short film in Interdependence. Now you're also in home office, I assume. How are you experiencing these times?
Well, it has been a crazy year for me right from the beginning, because I was in the middle of rehearsing an opera, a live stage opera, and we had to stop 4 days before the premiere, and this was in March. And since then I am constantly trying to handle postponements or things that cannot happen. I have another movie that would have come out these days in Switzerland and Germany, and it's not going to happen until next spring. So I have been working a lot for the last 3 years, including Interdependence, and I feel a bit like being pregnant for 12 months now and the babies cannot be born. So I'm a little bit in a state of waiting, and I try to be productive and start writing new projects. But it's not a very easy situation, and I also regret very much not being able to come to Armenia, because I was very excited when we got the invitation, and I absolutely wanted to come and visit the country.
I also would have liked to go to Armenia, but it also did not happen, unfortunately. So maybe I will start with some biographical information about you, so people who don't know you will have an idea. So you were born in 1972 in Interlaken, a very nice city in Switzerland where all the tourists go. Like, it's one of the most famous cities maybe for tourists to go to in Switzerland. But then you grew up part in Switzerland and part in Samoa in the Pacific, which I think is very interesting, and maybe you can talk about your experience there and how it maybe influenced your worldview, or I don't know, your filmmaking even. But anyway, you're living in Zurich and you work in Zurich. You made a number of films which have been very successful, especially Die Herbstzeitlosen in 2006. English title was Late Bloomers. It's about a group of ladies in a mountain town in Switzerland who don't want to conform to the expectations of their small village society and decide to open a lingerie store, which the villagers, at the beginning at least, are not very appreciated, don't appreciate it much. And it's still the second most successful film in Switzerland. Over almost 600,000 people in Switzerland have seen it in the cinema, which is a lot for Switzerland. After that, you did a film in Germany, which was completely different from Late Bloomers. It's called Tannert, or The Murder Farm, which is based on a real crime case that happened in 1922 in Bavaria in Germany, I think. And it's a very dark genre film, which I think surprised many people when it came out, that you went from this like more of a comedy popular film to this dark material. Then you did a film, I think it was for TV, called Lovely Louise, with one of the actresses from Late Bloomers. It's about an actress who lives, an old actress, aging actress, who lives with her son in a Swiss town, and claiming that she has given up her Hollywood career for her son. And it's about the relation. It's like an interesting story about the relationship between a mother and the son. Then you did a very interesting TV project, a 2-part TV series about the Swiss private banks. It's called Private Banking. And for me, when I saw it, I thought it was one of the most interesting commentaries on Swiss banking system, or Swiss private banking system. And 2 years ago, you had Le Vent Tourne, which premiered in Locarno on Piazza Grande, about young people trying to live independently in the mountains. and grappling with their desire, or with different desires, to want to live independently away from society, but also private desires that come in conflict with this other project. And then you participated in this project by the UN called Interdependence, where you contributed a short film called Kingdom that stars British actress Emily Beecham, which is a very poetic and without dialogue story that deals with the aftermath of climate change. But we can maybe talk about this later, because it's screened at the Guy Festival. And the film you mentioned that was supposed to come out is called My Wonderful Wanda in English, or Wanda mein Wunder. And it premiered at Zurich Film Festival. So it's already premiered, but for now the cinema start is postponed. So maybe because it's showing at GAIF, maybe we can talk about the Interdependence first. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how the project originated? I think you co-produced it. And how did the project come to life, and what did you like? What was your thought process when you were making your film?
So Adelina contacted me. She wanted me to be part of this project because she wanted film directors from all over the world, and I think for her it was logical also to have contribution from Switzerland. And so she called me one day. I didn't know her before. I knew her organization, Art for the World, but I didn't know her in person. And then she called me and explained the project to me and her vision of the whole omnibus film. And immediately I was very interested in it. And also for me it was very soon very clear that I want to do something about glaciers, because this is a topic in Switzerland that is very much the disappearance of the glaciers. It's really a big topic in our country, and it's also something very concrete where you can really see what climate change is doing and what effect it has, because you can see the glaciers melting like almost every year. You can really see the process getting them smaller and smaller. So for me, it was very much clear that I want to do something about that. And then sometimes it's difficult to explain how you get to an idea. It was just I had this image of like in a western, in an alpine western, with no glacier left, or just one tiny part of a glacier left. I had an image of a woman living with wolves. And then when I started doing the research, I quickly came to the project from scientists who really try to cover up glaciers or remaining parts of glaciers, so that you cannot stop but slow down the process of melting. So this is something that is really happening. And I was touched by these images, because it seemed such a helpless attempt of us small human beings to trying to stop something that is not stoppable anymore. So all these elements very quickly gave me, and I asked my co-writer of the project, Private Banking, if he is interested in writing this project with me, and then we developed this story. And I also, because I knew it was going to be in different languages, I wanted to do it without language, with no dialogue, and really try to do a very concentrated small piece of that really lives of the images and doesn't need any explanation.
I think it worked very well, the project. Like, it was very different from most of the other films, and especially because it was silent, and because the landscape is so interesting. This relationship between the woman and the landscape, I thought was very well done. Maybe we can look at some of the pictures. of this sauna, so people will have an idea what it looks like. Were you able to film this in Switzerland on a Swiss glacier, or did you have to go somewhere else?
No, we went to the Canton Graubünden, which is the eastern part of Switzerland, and there is one glacier that is really where there's a lot of scientific research, because it's one of the most quick melting glaciers. So yeah, we were able to do it there, but it was quite exhausting because you really have to walk. There is no public transport, or there is no road. You really have to walk for hours alongside the moraine and the stones. And then when you finally reach the tip of the glacier, you have to walk up the ice. And so it was really, for everybody, it was really a physically totally exhausting thing to do. But because everyone knew it's for an interesting project, so I could really get many people to do it and invest also their physical strength, because we all went there with our backpacks full of material, because we did not want to to have a helicopter flying it up, because that would have been such a wrong decision when you do a film about climate change. So it also was a very physical experience. Yeah.
It sounds like compared to your other films, that even though it's so short, it was probably one of the most exhausting things you might have done. Also working with animals, they look, I think the wolves look very real.
They are real.
They are real. But
they are real. My line producer, he knew someone from another movie. He shot Schellen Ursli, also a Swiss movie, a couple of years ago. He knew a wolf trainer, and so he asked him if he would come. So he really came, and they walked up that was really impressive, because they also had to walk all the way up to the glacier, and we couldn't let them walk at the same time with the goats, because then the wolves would have eaten the goats. So yeah, it was logistically quite complicated. Yeah.
How long was the shooting?
4 days.
Okay.
So we were 3 days on the glacier and 1 day in the cave.
Like the topic of interdependence, it's climate change. It's probably one of the most, or the most urgent topic to make art about at the moment. So maybe this is a very big question, but do you think that through movies something can be changed in the perception of people of this problem? Or do you think film is maybe even the most ideal format to show what is happening? Or
yeah, that's a big question. I think there is a difference between documentary films and feature films. I think that, yeah, especially documentary films, they can explore a subject and explain things, and people get to know things about topics that they didn't know. So documentaries, especially also in television, always can have like in a positive sense, a didactic level. And I think with feature films, it's a bit more complex, because you really have to find an angle that is not too didactical, that is not too much showing people in a I'm not a teacher, and I don't feel like I don't want to explain too much with words or with stories. So I think the only thing that you can do is try to show via sensitive things via images, via the sound, via a world that you build, you can maybe generate attention, but not in a one-to-one way. That's what I think. So I don't know if you learned something about the melting of the glaciers with this movie, for example, thing, but maybe you learned something about how it could feel when the world, when it continues to heat up like that. So then maybe one day there will be only a couple of humans left, and then this world is not a world that I would like to live in, because it's very hard and dried out, and it's like it has a very much an apocalyptic side, and so maybe that's where you can draw the attention.
So from the project as it originated, did Adelina, did she have any requests for the filmmakers, like things that had to be in there? Or were all the filmmakers completely free in their subject and in their style in how to want to approach this subject?
I think we were quite free. In my case, there was really a carte blanche. I could do whatever I want. She liked the idea right from the beginning. And I think it was also her attempt not to, she didn't see her as the curator who really tells people what to do. She selected people because she knew the work of them, and she was open and interested in how we, in our interpretations of the subject. So we were really free, yeah.
And do you know, or can you talk about what the plans are with the films? Like now it's showing in some festivals, but for example, in Switzerland, in Swiss press, I hadn't heard much about this film before I saw that it was playing in Armenia. So are there any concrete plans to show it maybe in schools or in cinemas, or what are the plans for the film?
So we had a premiere last October in Rome at the Rome Film Festival. And then we got invitations from many different countries from film festival. I know that there has been, she could sell it to different TV stations. And what was also a nice part of the whole thing is that the short films can also be shown individually at festivals. So Kingdom, we showed it in different festivals. We also found a world distributor who sells just a short film, just Kingdom. And it will be shown in Switzerland in Solothurn in January, which is the Swiss showcase of filmmaking every year. So I think there is Interdependence as an omnibus film, there is distribution, but also I know about, for example, the Brazilian film has been shown in Sao Paulo, so they also work as individuals. But also here we are a bit, we also feel the consequences of COVID.
Yes, and as you said, it will play in Solothurn, but we just learned that this can only happen online. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can go a bit backwards in your filmography, and especially your last film. It also dealt with the political subject, or with about how the world is now, but also in a way that's not didactic, that's not telling or trying to teach people how things are, but that shows young people in a situation they chose for themselves, like they have their way of dealing with this situation, and then you show what can go wrong. So this is it's a story of a young couple that they have a farm in the Jura mountain in Switzerland, and they are trying to live independently and off the grid, so to speak. And the film starts when they want to install a wind, what do you call it? A wind turbine or a windmill to produce their own electricity. And one of the guys who comes to install the windmill, he's a Spanish construction worker who's traveling around the world, who's living absolutely the opposite of the young couple. And of course, the woman who is played by Melanie Thierry, she falls in love with this guy and has her whole identity, or her whole project is put into question. And maybe we can watch now the short sequence from the film, which I think it's set out. Is it after or before the windmill is set up?
It's after.
It's after. I think they just we'll see how they place their hands into the concrete. That is the basis for the
yeah. So yeah, it's in the middle of construction. Yeah.
And after there was discussion near a fire about their different worldviews, but I let the scene speak for itself now. Sorry.
Ici. Et toi, Galina, ici. Voilà.
Comme ça?
Bah, toi aussi, Samuel, viens. Mais si, viens. Allez. Mais non, chérie. Voilà. Mets-toi là. Vous êtes prêts? 1, 2, 3.
Bourse. I love it. Ah, c'est chaud, hein?
Merci. Notre éolienne?
Oui.
Na zdrowie. Santé.
Santé.
C'est le capitalisme qui a tout détruit. Il a détruit notre rapport aux animaux, à la nature, même entre nous. Donc nous, on fait autrement.
Ouais. Mais quelque part, tu renonces.
Mais non.
Non, mais c'est pas du renoncement. C'est juste que c'est notre qualité de vie, ça.
Ça ne sert à rien. C'est inutile, Non, c'est même égoïste.
Égoïste, non mais tu t'entends?
Ouais. Autour de vous, il y a des millions de gens qui veulent s'amuser, se réchauffer, avoir une voiture, la clim. C'est ça le problème.
Parce qu'il y a quelque chose qui te gêne dans ce qu'on propose. C'est quelque chose qui te menace.
Non, rien. Tout va bien dans ce que tu proposes. La question, c'est pas ce que tu proposes. La question, c'est ce que tu vis. La question, c'est ton plaisir. Il est où, ton plaisir?
Non, mais moi je vois bien où il est le tien. T'es participé à la grande destruction. Non mais c'est super. Bravo.
Il y a une putain d'éolienne dans ton jardin. Je suis pas là pour avoir raison, moi.
Ouais, d'accord, on est ton petit projet alternatif, c'est ça? Ouais. Mais tu roules pour qui en vrai? Bah réponds.
Oui, je sais ce que tu vas entendre. Oui, j'ai travaillé sur des grands chantiers, au Proche-Orient, plusieurs fois en Chine.
Donc en fait, t'en as rien à foutre d'être ici. Du moment que tu bosses pour le Qatar ou les cocos, ça va?
Pourquoi pas? Les deux paient bien.
Mais t'en fais quoi de ton fric après? Ça sert à quoi? T'as une famille, des enfants, un projet?
Non.
Ah bah voilà, ah bah oui, c'est sûr. Hein. Les cyniques qui feraient des enfants, là, ça serait un peu trop curieux.
Pas plus que des idéalistes qui n'en font pas.
Quoi? Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit?
Oh, Alex, arrête.
Non mais moi j'en veux des enfants, c'est pas le problème. Mais Pauline.
Ah non, mais moi je participe pas à votre combat de coq. Hein. C'est trop facile. Ça parle d'enfants, alors vous vous tournez vers les femmes. Non mais franchement, et vous faire foutre.
Tu fais quoi là?
Okay. So I think this is a very nice sequence that sums up a bit the themes of the film with the wind. Sorry. also I have to say the light is very beautiful.
Yeah.
It like it shows what the situation there is. There is no artificial light, but all the topics, all the personal and political problems, they come together in this scene. So can you maybe speak about this film? What was the original idea? Was it like a political, was it the political idea that was first, or was it first about this couple, or was it both? Like, and also it's your first film that's shot in French and not in German. So how did you come to this decision to work in the French part of Switzerland and not the German one?
Yeah, I wanted to make, first of all, I wanted to make a movie about the separation, and with almost a very simple story, and settled in an environment that is very much not typically Swiss Alpine as we know it, with the mountains and the pretty little villages. I really wanted to go to the most abandoned part of Switzerland, where it's quite flat and you just have the grass and the trees and the sky. So this is very unusual for Switzerland, and I needed also a lot of wind, and this is the region where it is. So it's a very wild environment, and because I wanted to talk about big feelings and really about a world that is falling apart, I needed also in the visual style, I needed something that can show this, also the inner feelings of the protagonists. So it was clear that I wanted to do in a way a classical love story or separation story, and then with my co-author, he came up with the idea to put a very modern element also into it, and then the idea with the wind turbine came up. Because we said we want to talk about the contemporary world, where there's not only feelings and emotions in relationships, but where you also can talk about your attitude and your point of view in a political way. So that these were the elements where the story then started to show up. And then you speak French in this part of Switzerland, the Jura. And then for me, it was quite logical that the film has to be in French. I speak French very well, also from my home. And so it was an easy decision. And of course, I was also curious to work with French co-producers and French actors. So this decision came very naturally. And then, as we just saw in the scene, I also I wrote it together with Antoine Jacot, the writer, co-writer with Ursula Mayer. But then I also wanted at a certain point, because it's also an emancipation story, I wanted another female co-writer. And then we asked Céline Sciamma if she wants to be part of it. And the scene we just saw, the scene at the fire, I can really see her dialogue writing so much, because she's such a good dialogue writer, and she can put many layers into how and what people say to each other. So this was that was the idea.
What's also interesting about it, or what I thought, is that this is your first film that does not have any older people in it. And before at the film, you got famous for Herbstzeitlosen or late bloomers. It's about old ladies. Then in Tannhaut also we have Monica Bleibtreu playing one of the main parts. Lovely Louise is about this elder lady living with her son. So this has always been a topic for you, like relationships between the older generation and the younger one. And in Le Ventoux, this is not a topic. And also in your newest film about My Wonderful Wanda, it's also about this generational conflict, or generation, like multi-generational families. So was it like a decision no, not a decision, but did it come with the, because the topic looks into the future, that you thought the old people are not playing, should not play a part in this discussion? Or can you
No, in,
maybe talk about both your fascination with older people, or your love for older people and this generational conflict, and about Le Ventourne and how there this is not a topic?
it's funny because there was the father of Pauline, the role played by Mélanie Thierry. There was a father, and we had 3 scenes, 6 scenes with him involved because the farm belongs to him. So she took over the farm, and there has been a generation conflict because he didn't understand what they were doing and was very concerned that it's not turn out well. And then it was interesting because Le Ventourne is quite a short film. It's something over 80 minutes. And there was so much more in it. And during the editing process, sometimes it happens that you work like a sculpture and you cut away more and more and more, and then you see, all of a sudden you see what the film is about. So we shot so much more material, and Le Ventourne is just the essence of what I wanted to say. So there was an old person, but it didn't make it until the end. And I don't know. I don't think I have a fascination with elder people per se, but I'm interested in relationships. I think all my movies talk about relationships and about individuum that has to deal with expectations from society or from family. And in a family, of course, when you make family stories, you talk about most of the time 2 or 3 generations. So I think it comes from them. I'm interested in exploring family relationships or society. So it has sort of a logic that there is always also elderly people involved.
So it's not about, I had this a bit cynical or teasing theory that it's about the Swiss financing system, which is more or less controlled by older people in the decision-making roles. And also your biggest success was with the late bloomers. You had success with telling a story about older people. And also it has to be said that in Swiss cinemas, I think the most like cinema spectators is like 50% is older people. So
yeah,
I thought maybe it was this. No, I'm pretty sure it wasn't, but
yeah.
I was already in an interview that you were like, someone proposed to you to make late bloomers too, and you said you don't want to make your decisions from this where's the quote, like you don't want to change your topics based on economic thoughts. So but what is it that gives you an idea about what you want to make your next film about?
I think it's a building of many little impressions and thoughts or images that you have, things that are part of your own life also, and things that you think about a lot, or sometimes it's just for example, I was this summer I was in France for 2 weeks, and then I saw a lady eating all on her own every lunch at the same place, and she was alone. And there was something about her that fascinated me. It was very not spectacular, just an elderly lady, very nicely dressed, eating all on her own. And then this image stayed with me, and sometimes it will show up in a movie. So I think it's very difficult to explain where you get your ideas from, and it's a lucid process. It's something that is constantly going on in your system. Sometimes I feel like a scientist who is occupied with a subject. As soon as you decide what your movie is about, you really feel like a scientist that is constantly thinking about it. Like when you take a shower, before you sleep, when you wake up, it's always in your head, and you develop like an obsession of the subject that you want to make a movie about. But I think in the end, I think more and more in the end, you really tell the same stories, or you explore the same subjects over and over again. And even with my filmography, which seems quite eclectic, I can see what is going through, what really the topics are always the same, but told in different genres and tones. Yeah.
But what is the role of the Swiss film financing system in how you make films? Like, it's maybe for international viewers, it will be interesting to learn how it works in Switzerland. That, for example, that the Swiss public TV station plays a very big part in it. And I have this theory that not all Swiss films, but many Swiss films, they feel a bit alike. And that this is because of this huge part the TV station plays in the financing. And yes, I wanted to ask you, what are your experiences with this Swiss system of producing films? And also, are there sometimes, like in some part of your work process, is there a thought that how can I make this story more universal? Like, how do I leave Switzerland and make it interesting for maybe a German or a French or an Armenian or even a bigger audience? Mm-hmm. Or do you just try to tell your story and make it interesting?
No, I'm very interested in showing my films not only in Switzerland, and I think I also have been lucky that they are sold and shown in other countries. For example, Late Bloomers, the film about the four ladies, it was a big success also in Japan, in South America, in Germany, in Austria, in France, in many different countries in Asia. And even if it was really a small film with a very small budget and no stars and a simple story, but I think what worked there very well was that, of course, it had extreme visible identity. It was Switzerland. It was in the mountains. You could tell it was also in the Swiss German dialect. But it talks about such a universal topic. It talks about independence and the right to make your own decisions, even when you're old and in a way weak and useless for society. So I think that's where an international audience could really attach, and that's why it worked. But Switzerland is a very small film country. We have a tradition of filmmaking, but universally seen, we are not important, I would say. And it's, of course, because it's a small country. And then also there is 4 different cultures in our country. We talk 4 different languages. There's 4 official languages. So, for example, when I make a Swiss-German film, you have a potential of 4 million spectators. And this is small. And so we also depend completely on public funding. Swiss movies very rarely have a payback. They are just cultural investment. You hardly find anyone who is ready to give you money to invest because it's never working. It will always cost more than money coming back. So we totally depend on public funding. We have state funding, we have funding of the cities or of the cantons, of regional fundings. And of course, there is Swiss television that also plays a big role. And of course, you have people from there that read the scripts, and of course, they have their comments and wishes, what they would like to see the project go in which direction. But at the same time, of course, when you do a feature film for the movies, it's not, they don't influence you to make it a TV movie or something like that. So maybe it's also comparable with the situation in Armenia, because it's also a small film country, but still you have some people that are known also, like Atom Egoyan or people, but then they leave the country because they can work in bigger countries with a bigger movie potential.
But this, I mean, so far for you, the Swiss system seems to be working very well. But have you also thought about going to maybe go to Berlin to make German films, or even to Hollywood? I mean, many Swiss directors or also German directors, when they have one really successful film, Hollywood will come knocking and they will go there and make a film or two there. But this was never an option for you, or why did you decide to keep making films in Switzerland, even though it can be more difficult than elsewhere?
When I made Late Bloomers, there were some offers also from the United States, but it never really interested me, because I always had the feeling that it's easy when you have a success somewhere, it's easy to go there and make one film. And if it's not a big success, I think you never will make a movie there again. So I was never tempted by doing that. Now maybe it's a bit different, because via streaming there is so many more opportunities, and maybe it's more interesting again. And then I made Tanned in Germany after Late Bloomers. I went to Germany and made the movie, and after that I still today get offers to movies there, but I think I want to make my own films. And I never was really tempted to leave the country, because it's working. I can tell Swiss stories, but of course I'm looking for an international audience, and I feel also privileged that this is possible. But I think I would be a bit scared, but that I can do my own films anymore. So as long as this is working, I'm going to do that. And then also when Late Bloomers came out, I just had a baby. And then it's also a bit, there's also practical reasons.
But now, your newest film, My Wonderful Wanda, is it a German co-production? I'm not sure.
No, it's just Swiss.
But you have it's a very almost international cast. You have the great Mart Keller playing one of the main parts. You have a wonderful Polish actress called Agnieszka Grochowska. You have a great Austrian actress, Birgit Minichmeier, and it's all set in this one small place, this villa at the lake. I think it's like Zurich. So I thought this was very interesting to have this very small setting, this villa at the lake. The film almost never leaves this place, but at the same time it feels very international or very contemporary, like it could be set anywhere. Can you maybe speak a little bit about this film? Even though almost no one has seen it yet, but was this like did you really try there to make a universal story again that doesn't have many Swiss elements?
Yeah, it was. I absolutely wanted to work with these actors, and they don't speak Swiss German, so it was clear that yeah, the film will be in High German. But that was never a real problem, because I think the story, it's not exactly about Switzerland. It's more about East and West. It's more about Europe, and we in the first world, how we take advantage of people that are not in this privileged situation as we are, and how far we go to pay them for us to continue our comfortable life. So it's more like, it's also a metaphor. It's true that it's just leaving 3 times the house, and the rest we spend with the family. And this it's about the Polish nurse that comes to the rich Western family and takes care of the father, because they don't want to put him in a home, and he had a stroke, and he has to be in bed, and she takes care of him. And this is a subject that is very common now, and more popular, that you don't want to put your parents or partners in a home. You prefer to get someone from a poorer country to take care of him. And then you always talk about the women's situation, because the women from Poland or Hungary or Czech women, they earn much more money than they would do in their own countries, and we can keep our loved ones at home. So I wanted to do something about that. And this is Swiss, but it's also German, it's also Austrian, it's France, it's everywhere. And it's interesting because we already have requests for making a remake in France, and they just told us they would put it to the south of France, and then the nurse would be a woman from Morocco. So I think where there's people less privileged that need money, and so yeah, I think it's Swiss, but it's also very universal.
What I thought was very interesting about it, or well done about it, was how it's not a light family, it's not a comedy, but it's still a family setting that's very, it's very easy to identify yourself with the people, even though they are very rich. But at the same time, there's a very biting social commentary about exploitation, or about the relationship between, as you said, East and West. And I found this almost in all of your films, this balance between social critique that's very biting and very acute, and still this identifiability, which I think is it's like this goes through all of your films. And as I said, your TV series that you made, Private Banking, is like on the surface it looks like a very normal story about bankers and about some I don't know, banking, like the banking world, how it's people torn between career and between their personal morals. But at the same time, I thought it was one of the most biting critiques of Swiss banking system, which is a very, like, Switzerland is a rich country because of the role the banks play. And you end the series on a cynical note, like it's not like it's obvious that even though you introduce you introduce a character who is portrayed as one of the good bankers who can make things better, but in the end it's obvious that he's also one of the bad ones. And even the main protagonist, who is at the beginning very idealistic, she ends up getting drawn into the system and continuing with it. So maybe you can talk about finding this balance between critique and at the same time not putting off, the spectator, like keeping this balance between the people being able to identify themselves with the characters, but at the same time critiquing them.
Yeah, I think the key is really the writing, and the key is the acting. You always need good actors. The best. You have to choose the best actors you can get. And actors, I really like to work with stage actors, because they are also used to work as a group. They see themselves, they don't just wait for their close-up moment. They really see themselves as a part of a group and as a part of a process where you create it's the world where they play in. And I often make ensemble films. I often make films with a lot of actors, except a bit maybe Le Vent Tourne. But usually also in private banking, there's a group of very important protagonists, and also in my wonderful Wanda now. And I think you should also never underestimate the entertainment factor, but I mean it in a very positive way. When you really want to involve the audience, you really have to find an angle that keeps their interest awake. And I'm interested in this sort of entertainment, because you make a movie for an audience and not just for yourself. And also I think key is the humor, and I think that was very important in Wanda also, because we could have made a movie about the same subject but on a very much more sad or heavy tone. But then I think we would just have shown what we can read in the newspapers, and we know what we know about these women. So I think it's always important to go further when you make a film. And in this case, we wanted to explore what it really means when you talk about the win-win situation. So what has to happen that everyone, and not only the Polish nurse, has to really give everything they have and put them in situations where they cannot get out easily. So, and that's where the humor comes from, because we don't make fun of the characters, but we make fun in a way of the absurd situations they get into. And in the end, I think for the first time, they treat her like a human being, and a woman that has a choice. And to go there, we had to go through the whole story.
Can I ask Sona maybe if there are already some questions from viewers? Sona?
I'm here. Here we don't have any questions. I will need to check also, is there any on Facebook, and we'll let you know. Just a minute. There's no questions here on Facebook.
So I can maybe ask, go back all the way, talking about how it started. How did you become a filmmaker? Like, you grew up partly in Samoa, which is very, very different from Switzerland, and I think which gives you also a special perspective on a place like Switzerland. So can you maybe talk about your experiences in growing up in Samoa, and how did your interest in film start, and when did you decide, or why did you decide to become a filmmaker?
My parents worked or are still working in the medicine in developing countries. So that's why we moved there when I was about 1 year old, and we stayed there for a couple of years. And my parents are Swiss and I'm Swiss, so I don't have roots there, but I still think it influenced me in a way that I always knew that the world is bigger than Switzerland or Interlaken, where I was born. So I think I grew up knowing that there is a world to explore, and there is different cultures and different ways of lives and of livings, and maybe this has influenced me. I think it has, yeah. So when I was quite young when I decided to try to be a filmmaker, because for a long time I didn't know that this was a profession that you really can make in Switzerland, and also make a living of it, because when you live on an island, and then when we came back, we went back to the little village of Meiringen, also close to Interlaken. So I came from an island back to the mountains, and there was just one cinema that showed Hollywood movies. So I was really not coming from a background where you make film. But I always read a lot. I played the violin. I wrote already when I was very young. I wrote pieces, theater pieces, and I urged my friends to play them. And I played in school theater, and then I developed photography, and then I think all these interests came together in filmmaking. And when I was 16, I moved to Bern, to the capital city. And then I immediately understood that you can make films for your profession. And then when I had my when I finished college, I saw that you can study film at the University of Arts in Zurich, and then I made my education there. But I think maybe it was influenced by growing up in different worlds. And also I think my parents were also very fearless when they left Switzerland for another country where they knew nothing about. You could not go there and do some research in the 70s. You just had to pack your children and live there. And I think that needed kind of courage to do that. And so I think I grew up with knowing that you can try out things, and you can be brave and explore other worlds. Yeah.
And specific to film or to cinema, was there any film that where it made click, like I want to make this, or any filmmaker that was important in your formation? And I know, would you call yourself a cinephile in general, or is it just something you do and you want to do, but you're not, maybe not that influenced by the work of other people? You just make doing what you feel you should do.
Yeah, of course I'm a cinephile in a way that I watched so many movies when I started my study, and I also we had to watch a lot of movies. But of course there is Jane Campion, for example. Of course I was wow, every movie of her, the old ones and the new ones, they impressed me so much. But I never had the feeling that I want to make movies like her. It was more like I was always fascinated by filmmakers who are really able to build their own worlds and create own universes almost. So I would not say I am influenced by this or that filmmakers, but of course there's filmmakers that I love and appreciate a lot. But I really I work. I think when you think too much of idols, or when you have too many influences, then it can also block your own work. So I feel when I'm in the process of writing, I cannot watch too many other films. Or when I'm shooting a movie, I never go to the movies. I don't even watch television, because I want to focus on the construction of my own work. Yeah, I more often go to museums. I like a lot to go to museums, and I love to read still a lot. And music is important, and cooking. I cook a lot. I think cooking is very creative. Yeah.
And what does maybe the ideal future, or what are your plans for the future, assuming this virus will go away hopefully very soon? You said you're working in opera as well. Will you continue to do that?
Yes. Yeah.
And do you also have new film projects that you are already developing?
Yeah, I really want to continue the opera, because I think it's quite close to filmmaking, even more than stage plays, because it's very sensual, and there's the music, and you are very free, and your fantasy can really do whatever you want, and I really enjoy doing this, and it's very inspiring also for my filmmaking. So I prefer to do opera in between films than doing, I don't know, for the money you have to do things for earning your life. And I prefer doing an opera than doing, I don't know, some TV shows or something like that. I think I learn more from doing that. And I have a couple of projects which I started writing. I would love to do a movie about the first woman in Switzerland that was allowed to study medicine in a very interesting time. And I have other things. I have TV series. I developed 2 TV series right now, and what I really want to go more into is production, because I have my own little company, and I feel more and more that I want to be more part of this process and take more responsibility, and also be able from the beginning until the end to be not just a director, but I really want to be involved in every process more and more, because it's always my babies and my films, and sometimes it's hard to give away the rights of my own ideas, and so I want to be more and more part of that.
It's interesting that you say that you're developing 2 series. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, this is like a trend for filmmakers to do, I don't know, a Netflix series, or for a TV series, like Petra Volpe, another famous Swiss director. She just has a new series called Peace. I'm not sure if it's the English title. That's very successful and also very, very well done, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well.
So,
yeah.
will your series, will it be something also historical, or will it be centered about similar topics as your films, or will it be
one is about the 80s in Zurich, the punk rock drug scene, and the other one plays in the future. In about 15 years, and the world is a matriarchat. What is it in English? Because all the men died, so it plays in the future.
There will only be women actors?
No, there is a couple of men that mysterically survived, and they have a big role, and it really yeah, it's an interesting topic, because the question is really, would the world be a better place or not when there would be women in all these important positions? And it's very interesting to think that through. Yeah, because of course it wouldn't be that easy. So yeah, but I don't know if it's a crazy project, so I don't know if anyone will be interested, but we are just trying to get it going. Yeah.
No, I look forward to it even more after hearing
Yeah.
that. But it doesn't have a TV station yet, or?
We just started the dossier. We just we proposed it to Swiss TV right now, because there was a competition. But I think it's more, I don't know, I would be very surprised if they chose it. So I think we already think more of international streaming channel, and I work with a producer who has experience, and I wrote it together with Thomas Ritter, with whom I also wrote Private Banking and Kingdom. So yeah, it's at the very beginning. Yeah.
I wish you all the luck for it.
Thank you.
So if there are still no questions from viewers?
We don't have.
Okay, so we're at more or less 1 hour. If there's something else you want to talk about or want to say to the Armenian public, or I don't know.
Yeah, I would really have loved to come to this so interesting country, and it's a pity, and I hope there will be another opportunity. Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
You can come with your new film about world governed by women. So
Good.
know that.
Yeah, I will.
Maybe I give the word back to Sona.
So yes, thank you. On behalf of Golden Apricot, I want to thank you, both of you, for a very interesting talk. It was very enjoyable and interesting. For everyone who has time today, I just want to remind again that at 8 we will show the Interdependence, which we discussed a lot. So you are very welcome to come and to see it in Kino Park. And I wish you all the best, and hope to see you both in Yerevan soon.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation and the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.